8 centuries ago, in the heart of the great Khorasan, a child was born who would one day teach the world a language beyond words, the language of the soul. His name was Jalal al-Din Muhammad Rumi, but the world would come to know him simply as Rumi, the poet of love, the mystic of divine ecstasy, the man whose words still ignite hearts across time and culture. Rumi was born in 1207 in the city of Balkh. His father, Baha al-Din Walad, was a respected scholar and preacher, a man devoted to God and knowledge. But even as a child, Rumi seemed to carry something deeper, a quiet flame in his eyes, as if he remembered something the rest of the world had forgotten. His early years were spent amidst the call to prayer, the murmur of scholars, and the scent of ink on parchment. Yet soon, he and his family were forced to leave their homeland. The Mongol invasions were sweeping across Central Asia like a storm, and his father fled westward, seeking safety and peace. That journey, from Balkh to Nishapur, from Baghdad to Mecca, and finally to Konya, would become a metaphor for Rumi's own life, a journey of exile from the outer world, leading toward the homeland within. In Konya, in what is now Turkey, Rumi became a scholar, a jurist, and a teacher. He lectured on Islamic law, theology, and philosophy, admired, respected, even revered. Yet beneath the robes of scholarship, his heart was restless. He had knowledge, but he lacked something more sacred, experience. The fire of divine love had not yet touched him. He was, as he later wrote, like a flute without breath. That changed the day he met Shams of Tabriz. Shams was no ordinary man. He was wild, free, untamed by the world. His eyes burned with a light that frightened and fascinated everyone who met him. When Shams entered Rumi's life, something in the air changed, like lightning splitting the sky. Their first meeting was said to have lasted hours in complete silence, two souls recognizing each other beyond time. Rumi would later say, "What I had thought I knew, I learned nothing of, until I met Shams." That meeting was the beginning of his transformation. The scholar became a lover, the preacher became a poet, knowledge turned into flame. Shams taught Rumi that God cannot be known through logic, nor reached through law, only through love. The way of love, Shams said, is not a subtle argument. The door there is devastation, and Rumi stepped through that door without hesitation. From that moment, his words became rivers of ecstasy. He began to write and recite verses that shook the hearts of those who heard them. He spoke of the soul's longing for union, of the pain of separation, and of the joy of dissolving into the beloved. "I am so small," he wrote, "I can barely be seen. How can this great love be inside me?" But Rumi's love was not of the ordinary kind. It was not love for one person, one faith, or one world. It was love as the very essence of existence. For him, love was God, and God was love. Every heartbeat was an echo of that eternal truth. The people of Konya were astonished. Their once sober teacher now danced in the streets, reciting poetry in trance-like devotion. He would spin in circles, losing himself in the remembrance of God, whispering verses that seemed to come from another world. These dances, the sema, became the origin of the whirling dervishes, symbols of surrender and stillness within motion. "Why do you spin?" a disciple once asked. "To dissolve," Rumi replied, "so that only the beloved remains." When Shams mysteriously disappeared, some say he was killed by those who envied their closeness. Rumi's grief was indescribable, yet even in that pain, he found revelation. He realized that Shams had never truly left. "Why should I seek?" he wrote. "I am the same as he. His essence speaks through me. I have been looking for myself." That was the turning point. The external teacher vanished, but the inner guide was born. Out of heartbreak emerged poetry that would outlive empires. His grief became gold, his longing became light. In every verse he wrote, the silence of Shams was still speaking. Through his poems, Rumi gave the world a map of the soul's journey, from separation to union, from fear to freedom. He spoke of the reed flute crying for its source, of the lover burning to return to the flame, of every pain as a secret invitation to awaken. He once wrote, "Don't turn away. Keep your gaze on the bandaged place. That's where the light enters you." Rumi was not preaching a religion, he was singing a revelation that every human being carries a spark of the infinite, and that to love is to remember who we truly are. Centuries later, his voice still calls to us, a whisper beneath the noise of the modern world. His message crosses all boundaries because it speaks to what is most human, most divine, and most eternal in us. In every age, the world grows louder, yet Rumi's voice still cuts through the noise, softer than a whisper, stronger than a storm. His message has outlived kings, religions, and empires because it speaks not to the mind, but to the soul. He once said, "What you seek is seeking you." In those few words, he offered humanity its greatest secret, that the distance between the seeker and the sought is only an illusion. Rumi's poetry was never meant to be analyzed, it was meant to be felt. He didn't write to explain God, he wrote to dissolve into him. His verses flow like rivers toward an invisible ocean, carrying those who dare to listen beyond logic, beyond thought, into pure experience. Silence, he said, is the language of God. All else is poor translation. In the modern world where everything is measured, monetized, and defined, Rumi's words return us to what cannot be measured, the mystery of being alive. He reminds us that love is not a sentiment, it is existence itself. Every heartbeat, every breath, every rising of the sun is love speaking through form. We are born of love, he wrote. Love is our mother. He believed the soul is a spark exiled from its source, restless until it remembers where it came from. That longing, he said, is the fire that refines us. The pain we run from is the very door we need to walk through. To him, suffering was sacred, not because it was pleasant, but because it stripped away illusion. When life breaks us, the cracks are not our end. They are how the light enters. Rumi's vision of love was vast, borderless, and dangerous. He warned that true love burns everything false within you. Love is a flame, he wrote, and when it blazes, it consumes all but the beloved. To love God, or another human being in Rumi's sense, is to risk annihilation, to lose the self that clings, judges, and fears. But in that loss lies liberation, for when the self disappears, only the one remains. This is why Rumi spoke in paradoxes. He called death birth, silence music, and pain healing. He wanted to show that reality cannot be confined to opposites, that joy and sorrow, gain and loss, union and separation are all movements of the same divine dance. The lover who weeps is not defeated. He is being reshaped by love's hand. Centuries later, people quote Rumi without realizing the depth behind his words. His poetry fills calendars and coffee mugs, but few understand that every verse was born from spiritual fire. He was not writing for romance, he was writing for transformation. When he said, "Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there." He wasn't escaping morality, he was inviting humanity to rise above judgment, to see with the eyes of the soul, where everything is united in divine harmony. The world today, fractured by identity and belief, needs Rumi more than ever. He taught that God is not confined to one faith, one nation, or one name. The lamps are different, he said, but the light is the same. His vision was not of tolerance, but of oneness, a recognition that behind every face there is the same eternal flame looking back. If Rumi were alive today, he would tell us that we have mistaken knowledge for wisdom and noise for music. He would remind us that prayer is not in words, but in awareness, to walk, to breathe, to love consciously, that is worship. He would tell us that when you love someone purely, you are seeing God through their eyes. And when you forgive, you are forgiving yourself. Rumi's gift to humanity was not a doctrine, but a doorway. He invited us to walk through it, to leave behind the false self and remember the soul. He said, knock and he'll open the door. Vanish and he'll make you shine like the sun. Fall and he'll raise you to the heavens. These were not metaphors, they were instructions for awakening. And so, when you read Rumi, do not just read, listen. The words are only fingers pointing to the silence behind them. In that silence, the soul begins to remember. You begin to feel what cannot be said, that you are never separate from the source you've been seeking. That is the language of the soul. It has no alphabet, no grammar, no sound. It speaks in longing, in tears, in laughter, in stillness. It speaks when you stand in awe before the sky, when you forgive without reason, when you love without measure. Rumi once said, I am not this hair, I am not this skin, I am the soul that lives within. To understand him is to realize that all outer forms are veils. The poet, the reader, the lover, the beloved, they are all masks of the same divine actor. In the end, Rumi's message is not ancient, it is eternal. The soul is still speaking, the beloved is still waiting, and love is still the answer. Perhaps that is why, even after 8 centuries, his words still echo with undying life. Stop acting so small. You are the universe in ecstatic motion. In that one sentence lies the heart of his entire message. You are not a drop in the ocean. You are the ocean in a drop. That is Rumi, the poet who spoke the language of the soul.